The first edition of the Schoolmaster by Roger Ascham, printed in London in 1570. I'm Adam Douglas, Senior Specialist in Rare Books at Peter Harrington, and I'd like to show you this copy of a rare book. On the few occasions this book does turn up, it's almost inevitably incomplete, badly damaged. This copy is complete and in very good condition. We see here the title page. It's probably the most important work on education published in the Elizabethan era. Roger Ascham had been royal tutor and was Queen Elizabeth's tutor when she was a princess, and he was one of the leading theorists of education at this time. The book is actually published posthumously by his widow because it was felt that the ideas in it were important enough to do so. And if we look at the long title here, we see something that would be familiar to generations of school children after Ascham for many centuries. The Schoolmaster, or Plain and Perfect Way of Teaching Children to Understand, Write and Speak the Latin Tongue. Basically, Ascham's educational theory centered around the idea of learning Latin in order to learn grammar and also, of course, a certain amount of history and culture that we pick up by studying classical literature. Ascham was a great Greek scholar, but for schools, for the grammar schools that began to spread after this date, the Latin was the key subject on the curriculum. It's printed by John Day, who was the printer to Queen Elizabeth, and printed various important books in the Elizabethan era. And at the end of the book, we get his rather fine printer's device. Very typically Elizabethan woodcut there, printed at London, printed by John Day, dwelling over Aldersgate in 1570. Now, the copy itself, as I said, is complete. It is ruled throughout. This ink here possibly would have been a little redder earlier, but this is these rules are done by hand, and there is very little bit of trimming at the head, which has brought the top of the page close to the running headlines. Very occasionally touches a letter here or there, but generally they've been pretty much spared the binder's knife, as we say. And this is a very nice copy in a lovely simple calf binding, which I suppose is 17th or perhaps 18th century, a very nice plain English calf, unlettered. There's no label, which is labels on books like this tended to be added in the 18th century. There's simply these nice gilt devices in the compartments and double gilt rules. Not the most sophisticated binding in the world. A French binder would probably turn his nose up at it, but a very nice piece of English work. Is later in the libraries of Henry Cunliffe, who had some fine books, some fine early books, and latterly in the 20th century in the famous American library of Harold Greenhill, whose books were acquired en bloc by his friend Bradley Martin. And here at the end of the book we have the Bradley Martin bookplate, which was added at the time of his sale, which is a very famous and successful sale, in several sales in the early 90s. So a copy with a good provenance, showing that complete copies like this are rare in commerce and greatly sought after. For more details of this book and for other early printed books, please see the Peter Harrington website.